Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this latest Binalyze AIR release review. Today we're releasing version 2.0.1. I'm joined by two people on the call. First, a debutante, our lead solutions expert, Tom Blumenthal. He'll be leading the demonstration part from today. And also from the road, we're joined by Emre Tanaztepe, regular face, and our CEO and founder. And my name is Steve Jackson.
Hello.
I'm the VP of Growth here at Binalyze. So the usual housekeeping, if you've been on these before, you'll be familiar with these, but for the new attendees, there is a panel on the right-hand side. Please feel free to submit your questions and comments. We would love to hear them. We will discuss them at the end. So please use the right-hand panel to submit your questions. We also have a Discord server for more technical discussion and also for technical support. Again, we'd love to see you join us on that platform, and I've put a link in the chat window with the invitation to join the Discord server. And also for existing users, I can see from the list we have some on the call, which is great. Technical support, as always, can be accessed via binalyze.com/support. or support@binalyze.com by email, and also from our new knowledge base, kb.binalyze.com. So that's the housekeeping out of the way. Release 2.0.1. First, let's talk about the release. So the release happened on the 22nd of September of this month, so about 1 week ago. If you joined us on the previous webinar, you will know that we have recently migrated over to a Docker infrastructure. So if you're on version 1.8 or above, please just follow the upgrade prompts from your AIR console. If you're an existing user who's still on versions prior to 1.8, we would advise you to start the transition over to Docker when you're comfortable to do so. And again, there is a link in the chat window with a knowledge base article on how to make that migration over to 1.8. And if you're a brand new user, you can also request a free trial at binalyze.com/air. So there are 6 main highlights from the release that we will be going through today. The first is an updated user interface. So again, regular users, I'm sure you like the old user interface, but with all of the new features that we've released over the previous months, it was becoming a little bit cluttered. So we've redesigned the user interface, and Tom will show you that as part of his demonstrations in a few moments. A big one for us, we're also today releasing drone integration within AIR, and I'll go into more detail on that in a few moments. We're also releasing auto asset tagging, PPC file import for off-network acquisitions, integration support for Cortex XSOAR, and also Splunk Phantom, and port and IP security restrictions for enhanced enterprise-grade security. Another link in the chat window, if you want to read the full release notes, they are available at binalyze.com/air/release-notes, and you can use the link in the window. So let's get into it. For some of you, it might be the first time that you're hearing about the drone product. So I just wanted to start by giving a little bit of a recap in terms of what drone is. So consider drone like a 24/7 available senior DFIR analyst who can look at the evidence that's provided to it, or can collect evidence as well, and come back with the compromise assessment and the findings. So drone is a multifunctional product. It's an evidence collector using our standard IREC engine. It's also a forensic analyzer. It has Sigma rules scanning capability on live endpoints. It's also a Yara scanner, and it can be run from the command line. There's a solution there as well. And so it has multiple uses. It's ultra-fast early case assessment. It can provide automated compromise assessment, rapid keyword searching, and also anomaly detection from the forensic data that's provided to it. And we'll demonstrate some of these things in a few moments. As with all Binalyze products, it's lightning fast and easy to use. And the key thing that we're announcing today is that now it's all delivered on demand remotely and concurrently across multiple endpoints via the AIR platform. So drone is built on a modular architecture, makes it extremely agile and responsive. Those of you that have been using it in the last few months, I'm sure will have seen that. So when the acquired evidence is provided to it, it uses a number of modular analysis pipes to analyze each individual item of evidence. And as those items move through those pipes, through the stages of those pipes, drone is adjusting the score up and down depending on what it sees in the evidence until it's able to provide findings. The findings come in two different categories. First of all, drone provides verdicts, and a verdict can be dangerous, matched, suspicious, rare, or relevant. And if it's unable to reach a verdict, it will still provide scores for interesting items based on a high, medium, and low scale. So how did we get to this point? Well, in May 2021, we released the beta release of drone. And on the 1st of July 2021, we released a standalone executable version of the product, which is still available. It's a zero config deployment with no dependencies, no installation requirements. It can be deployed over SCCM and other similar products. And it can also be executed manually on the endpoint via a Tower UI or from the command line. Today, we're deploying directly from AIR. And specifically, we've integrated the drone capability with the evidence acquisition module, the timeline module, and it can also be run from your webhook integrations as well. So why is that important? What's the significance of drone integration with AIR? Well, fairly obviously, it unlocks the remote deployment at scale that AIR is good at. So AIR provides a perfect delivery mechanism for the drone capability. You can also automate drone investigations from your integration triggers, so your CM or your SOAR. And you can use drone findings in your collaborative timeline investigations. So all of those use cases are decreasing the preliminary analysis time to minutes rather than hours. So saving time, saving resources, and ultimately saving money. And it's also allowing support analysts with perhaps less experience to make better informed decisions. So it's supporting those analysts, allowing level 2, level 3 analysts to focus more on high impact tasks and making the SOC more efficient. So let's get into it. We're going to demonstrate two use cases now. I'm going to hand over to Tom. He's going to perform a standard compromise assessment using the evidence acquisition feature. And then we're going to investigate a phishing attack using a collaborative timeline. Tom, over to you.
Thank you, Steve. So first of all, this is the new UI for AIR 2.0, as Steve mentioned. So as you can see, we moved the top bar menus here to the left. So they're all accessible here. Rearranged some of the things so it's easier to access and you have more space to utilize. And let's dive in and go into the compromise assessment demo. So if I'm going to endpoints and going to choose one of my my endpoints. So this is a desktop machine in my organization that, or my customer's organization, that we've been alerted that there is some suspicious activity, and we are afraid it might have been attacked. So I want to do a compromise assessment on this unit, and the way to do it is go to acquire evidence. Let's give this a name. This acquisition, and we have added a brand new acquisition profile, the compromise assessment. So it's built into your AIR platform now. I can choose that. I can select where to save my my evidence, just as we are used to until now. And then the other addition here is the post-acquisition tasks, which includes drone. I can leave it on autopilot, which will run all of the analyzers, or I can disable this to get more control into exactly what I want to run. So if you look closely at the analyzers here, you can see all the different modular pipes that Steve mentioned, different types of analyzers that I can choose to run on my endpoint. And the process is actually acquiring the data from the endpoint and then analyzing it and integrating in everything into one report, as we will see in a minute. Now, the new compromise assessment profile includes all of the elements that are required to run all of these analyzers by drone. So this is something that we may update over time. As we add more and more analyzers to drone, we will adjust the compromise assessment profile to match what is needed by drone. Another thing I can do here by disabling the autopilot is add search keywords. So for example, in this use case, I want to search for sdelete because I am worried that the attacker may have tried to hide their tracks. So I can add this as a keyword, and we will see that in the result of our search. I'm going to leave everything running from now. You can see here, by the way, the Yara scanner, and it runs the Sigma rules as default as well. And in the next version, one of the next versions, you'll be able to customize those rules as well to run your own both Yara and Sigma rules using drone. Much like you can run the Yara rules with the triage today. Okay, so let's start this process. And in the meantime, we can go and look at a different one, which is identical, that I've just done a few hours ago, and look at the report. At this point, I want to hand it over to Emre that can tell us a little bit about what we see in this report and what are the findings by drone.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tom. So before we start with drone, I think we should mention about the case report. The best thing about AIR is it is among the very few products on the market that can provide you the full picture of a so-called crime scene. So when you run AIR in the previous versions, we already provided this report. Tom, yeah, exactly. Like, if you can scroll, our users can see like how detailed is that. So what we have added with drone here is right now, after having the crime scene pictures, you have everything tagged and labeled. So if you click on the drone section, you'll see that drone already provided a lot of findings here. And the great thing about these findings is they are structured in a pyramid-like shape. So if you have anything you should be looking at as a priority, those are automatically highlighted on the dangerous verdict. And then if you were searching for something, those are highlighted as matched. And then we have suspicious, rare, and relevant. In some of the cases, if there's nothing on the endpoint that may pose a threat, then you may still have rare and relevant items, but drone automatically prioritizes them. So rather than spending, especially like level 1, level 2, and most of the times level 3 analysts, these are the stuff those people are spending their hours for understanding. And if you have this for multiple endpoints, then you need to multiply those hours with the number of endpoints. So if you click on the dangerous part, Tom, as you can see, like we have a lot of Sigma rules matching on this endpoint, such as Mimikat use, and those were matched on the event records. And we also have a web shell that was detected as b.gsp. And if you scroll down, you'll see a lot of like other malicious detections. So you don't only have an alert from your products, you also have everything you should be looking at in one single pane of glass. So that's the great thing about drone. And Tom, by the way, I think we should also mention how much it takes to get this full picture plus the findings. I think I remember it was 2.5 minutes. in the task space?
Of course we will. And actually, we can probably switch to the can probably switch to the here to the back to the console, and you can see that I have a notification that my acquisition was already done. So you can see the one that we've started earlier is already completed. It took about 2.5 minutes. The last thing we wanted to show here as well, we did the delete search, so it is highlighted here under matched. So you can see findings of this in the MFT table and in the prefetch as well. So it was definitely ran on this endpoint.
And another thing, Tom, from my side. So this is one of the advantages of having AIR plus drone, because even if attackers may try to hide their traces, they may delete an evidence from a system section, but every contact leaves a trace. That's the Lockhart's principle. So having a full picture, even if they may try to delete, drone still finds the traces of that like activity in some other section of evidence, because as of the latest version, our product is able to collect over 150 different evidence types. So that's something we should mention as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Emre. We'll continue to the next use case now. So we've seen the acquisition and compromise assessment on a single endpoint now. But the other use case that we wanted to mention is using drone on a timeline. And in this use case, we're going to look at a phishing attack that was performed on a company. So specifically in this case, it was the finance department that was targeted, and I can find all the computers belonging to the finance department over here. This nice structure comes from Active Directory integration. So I'm syncing with the Active Directory to get the context and the structure of the computers in the organization, so I can find all of the computers that belong to this department nicely organized, of course, assuming that the IT maintain their Active Directory in order. But in this case, I want to run a timeline acquisition or a timeline investigation on all of these three endpoints. So I can do it right from here, start a new timeline, and I can see those three endpoints and just add them to my timeline. It already gives this a name. And again, I have a drone integrated here, which allows me to just, again, I can either use autopilot or I can disable the autopilot to see exactly the endpoints, the analyzers that I want to run. And again, I can use a keyword. So I know that the the phishing site that was used to target my computers is threat sharing.co.uk. So I can add this as a keyword and start create my timeline. So you can see now AIR is collecting the data from all these three endpoints, and drone will analyze those endpoints as well. In the meantime, we can go again to one that was created earlier. It's not going to take long anyway, but we'll go here, and now we can see all of the data, anything that has a timestamp from all of these endpoints collected on one timeline. So I can see everything in parallel. You can see here the different computer names. So I can see all of that. I can see some of the flags from drone here on the timeline as well, and I can see them aggregated nicely in here. And if I will either scroll down here and I can see them, or just search for threat sharing. then I can see those 2 endpoints. Actually, it seems that only 2 of the 3 endpoints actually clicked the link. So they have searched or actually clicked that URL. So it seems that the third one probably remains clean, but these 2 definitely clicked that that thread. Now I can click here on the name of the computer. Steve, I think you're unmuted. It gives a little bit of echo. Sorry.
Yeah, just exited.
So I can click the name of the computer here, and that will take me directly to the report. So I can actually, again, go to the drone and see under matched exactly where that match is coming from. So I can see specifically in this endpoint, it's coming from the Firefox browser. And of course, I can look in more details on this endpoint to understand if there's any ramifications to the fact that they clicked that phishing website. Back here. Emre, anything you want to add on this, on the timeline?
Yeah, just another note. Thanks a lot, Tom. Actually, that's what is called super timeline, but internally we call it ultra timeline, because you don't need to deal with any CSVs. You don't need to parse any evidence, deal with a lot of like tons of CSV files and try to import into some database. AIR and now with drone lets you do this simultaneously, like in parallel. So you can run it on tens of endpoints and then get the super timeline. And the other great thing about this is dynamic. So if you want to add another endpoint, maybe we can quickly go over that, Tom. So how do you enrich it? Just showing the context of the add button.
Of course.
So anytime we can enrich this by adding new endpoints off network, and we'll already cover one of them, or even a CSV file that you can collect from some other product, which can be a firewall, some DLP solution, a CM solution. So everything is possible here.
Or actually the MFT, for example, this is the an MFT CSV that was collected with AIR. It's not parsed in the report itself, but I can import it here directly into the timeline. So I'm not going to go through this process now, because this is the previous webinar that we had.
In total, Tom, before you start with the next one, in total, in around 2 to 3 minutes, you get a full timeline from multiple endpoints in parallel, and adding another evidence into this timeline takes just a minute. So in around 5 minutes, you see the full picture, completely organized in a chronological order, and also tagged with drone.
Thank you, Emre. Steve, are you ready to jump back to you to the next part of the presentation?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Thank you for that, Tom. That was very interesting, and Emre as well. So that's drone integration with AIR. Obviously, that's 2 use cases. There are many others. So if you'd like to get your hands on the product, please reach out to us via the website, and we will make that happen. The second feature that we are releasing today is auto asset tagging. So with this release, AIR can now automatically identify and tag your network assets by type. It does that on deployment if you've defined the necessary profiles, or it can be done on demand as well. And the relevance of that is it allows you to find and group critical assets together. So, and that opens up a number of very exciting use cases, some of which you can do immediately and some of which we are working on for future releases later on this year. So for example, being able to schedule tasks against a group of critical assets. So being proactive with your forensic acquisitions rather than the traditional kind of reactive mindset towards forensics. It also allows you to do baselining against those critical asset groups. So creating like a golden image so that you can then diff against that in the future. We have that feature coming very soon, allowing you then to cut down the amount of evidence that you have to trawl through by diffing it against what you know was the clean image. So instead of it, from the lab, it appears that reduces the evidence load by about 200 times. And another application that we're working on is also VIP machines. So if you want your C-suite to be tagged into a group and then schedule proactive checks against those machines or give them particular focus, that will be possible as well. We have some default asset profiles already set up, come out of box. So we will automatically find web servers, mail servers, SQL servers, IIS, and also domain controllers. But also with the feature, you can create bespoke asset profiles. So if you can come up with creative ways of using the also asset tagging feature, then it's possible to, using fairly standard rule sets, create those bespoke asset profiles. And I'm sure Tom will show you that in a moment. So let's hand back to Tom and dive into auto asset tagging.
Thank you, Steve. All right, so we're back at the endpoints screen, and we're just seeing all of our endpoints, all of our here, all of our machines here in the list. And as you can see, it's all just one long list of endpoints. Scrolling through them or searching through them can be quite cumbersome. In this case, specifically, again, because I've synced with the LDAP, then I have some sort of organization here. I can find my domain controller and perhaps some more servers this way. But otherwise, it's all just a collection of endpoints that are ununique, I would say. I can now go to settings and to the settings dropdown and into auto asset tagging. And here we can see some of the default profiles. I've created one for file server as well. And the way we create those profiles, let's take the domain controller, for example, is based on either processes, files, or directories that either exist or don't exist on that endpoint. So each one of the endpoint agents will run these rules and add a tag to the endpoint based on these rules to find whether they have a certain role in the organization. So of course, you can create your own rules for that as well. Now, what I'm going to do is enable this feature. So it's turned on now. So that means that every new endpoint that I'm adding, when I'm installing the agent, the first thing that the agent will do is run these rules and automatically tag the relevant endpoints. But I can also, it will also run routinely, but I can also run this manually now. Just start the process, and it's fairly quick. So if we go back to endpoints, let's refresh that. Here, now it's finished. So let's just go back to dashboard and back here. Here, it's finished. So now you can see a few tags that were added here. So my domain controller, for example, is tagged, and I can see the tag added here. My file server is tagged, and in this specific use case, I also have a web server that was tagged. And if I go and look at this, specifically here, this is actually not a server, it's a desktop machine. Now, it's not what I would have expected. I would have expected to see servers in here. But in this case, actually, this dev1 machine, we were looking at it earlier. We saw the drone report on it. And if you remember, one of the things that Emre showed is that we found a malicious web shell on this endpoint. So actually, there is IIS services running on this endpoint, even though it shouldn't be a web server. It was tagged as a web server. So that alone can raise some flags for me to say, maybe I need to investigate this endpoint further to see what's going on with that. Emre, if you can tell us a little bit, what was your experience that led to the development of this feature? Obviously, it comes with a backstory, like most of our features.
Sure, exactly. That's what we pay great attention to. So all the, including our first product, Tactical, it was also created for solving a need, and this was exactly the same scenario. It was Hafnium, so there was a global like outbreak, and we were in the middle of our deployment with one of our enterprise customers. So we were deploying our product to almost 50,000 endpoints, and right in the middle of that process, people started to talk about Hafnium, and we wanted to like run a triage on the IaaS servers, but unfortunately, no one knew how many IaaS servers were inside that environment. And believe it or not, we had to wait for 2 hours just to get that information, so we can focus on only those servers and spend our time efficiently. So that was the moment we decided to actually there are some products, there are separate products that has asset discovery features, but none of them are providing this as a forensic feature. So that was the moment we decided to like add this feature, so that uh, whenever you make a new deployment to an endpoint, we automatically search some basic conditions, as you have shown previously. And then based on those matches, and those conditions are quite comprehensive, by the way. So you can create the groups of conditions, you can end them, you can OR them. But in essence, it's extremely easy, because in the end, you're providing just a single file path, or you're providing some process name. And with every new version, we are adding more out-of-box rules here, so you won't be required to write them by hand. So that was the story, and I can see that it's solved completely now. As soon as you make the deployment, you automatically see the tags, and then in case a new SQL server exploit is in the wild, you can easily focus on your SQL servers only.
Thank you, Steve, Emre. And obviously, as you said, now that these endpoints are tagged, I only have one in each here, so it's not such a big deal. But once these endpoints are tagged, I can indeed run an action, a task on all of these tagged endpoints. I can also schedule an acquisition, or an acquisition with drone, actually, to that group of endpoints. So for example, if I want to routinely scan all of the domain controllers in my organization, I can just create a scheduled task to run a compromise assessment on all of my domain controllers, let's say once a week, and that will be scheduled and run automatically. And Steve mentioned earlier the diffing feature that we're working on, which will work very nicely with this. More on that in future webinars. Steve,
And Tom, by
back
the
to
way,
you.
before we pass it to Steve, I don't know if you had a chance to see the emojis, but while you were demonstrating the auto asset tagging feature, we received a lot of emojis, and the reason for that is,
I've seen that. Yes, thank you very
yeah,
much
whoever,
for the support.
yeah, whoever who dealt with this problem, they know that it's extremely hard, because it's not in your control. I mean, you need to wait for some other department, some other like person to give you a list, which may not be updated. So it's extremely useful.
Thank you, Steve.
Good, thanks, guys. I think also a great example of the philosophy here at Binalyze, which is to respond to the customer feedback. Although that customer feedback was in partnership with us during a deployment, it's something we pay very close attention to. And if you look at the release notes, you'll see there are lots of credits there from customers. So we rely on that. So please keep them coming if you have ideas. Let's move on. The next feature, or a group of features actually, we're going to look at 3 in one go now. So we have off-network acquisitions. So this is really, again, in response to customer feedback. And how do we use AIR to investigate if the machine's taken offline or is off the network, which can happen sometimes, especially if you're in the middle of a crisis. So to solve that problem, from this release, you are able to import evidence that's been acquired from offline endpoints into AIR. and then include them as part of your investigation. And that's, as Tom will demonstrate in a moment, that's basically a very simple PPC file import. But one of the other great things that now opens up is a better alignment between our tactical product and the AIR product that we're looking at today. So tactical, if you're not aware, is our standalone evidence collector. So that is available as a soft license or as a USB dongle. So that now becomes a more valuable product because you're able to take the results that tactical can collect and bring them into AIR to forward your investigation and to go into timelining and triaging and things like that. So an interesting development. So let's dive in again, back to Tom. Sorry, no, we're going to do two more. So we also have two new integrations. Integrations are super important for us at the moment, really strategically important. We're attempting to build out an ecosystem around the AIR platform and the AIR console via integrations with other solutions. And we feel that really gives us and our customers the edge in terms of being able to automatically at any time, day or night, create forensic tasks and perform forensic investigations without the need for somebody to get involved. We have a generic webhooks parser for any bespoke integration. So if the third-party solution has webhook support, then we can typically integrate with it in a very short period of time. We also have a number of out-of-box solutions that we launched earlier on in the year. So, for example, QRadar and also Splunk's CM solution. But today we're adding two more out-of-box support for some of the biggest SOAR providers, so Cortex XSOAR and also Splunk Phantom. We are currently adding around 2 integrations a month, and that's something that we intend to speed up as we go forward. So keep your eyes open for future integrations as well. And then the third item, before I hand back to Tom, is port and IP restrictions. So in previous releases, in the last 2, so pretty much since the spring, we've introduced a number of security features. First of all, back in May, we launched enhanced user and role definition. So you can now define roles based on, I think, more than 90 different granular permissions. And we also, in August, launched Azure single sign-on and also two-factor authentication. So we've been heavily focused on the security side of the product. It's something that our customers are highly focused on and have requested. And today we're adding 2 more features for enterprise-grade security. The first is port splitting of the console and the agents, and the second is restricting the console access by IP addresses. So that's a block of 3. Back over to Tom to show you those 3 features.
Tom, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Emre. So let me start over. We'll go through these features that Steve mentioned one by one. So the first one would be off-network acquisition, and adding that is really, really easy. So there are actually a few different places that you can add that from, but from here, from the endpoint screen, if you click to add an endpoint, you can see either deploy new, which would allow you, take you to the screen that you know previously to deploy new agent to the endpoint, or you can choose the off network. That will take you to this screen where you can simply drag and drop a PPC file from an off-network acquisition done by with Tactical, and click to import this PPC. As you can see, it's super quick to import it. Now, specifically in this case, this is an endpoint that I didn't have previously on my AIR platform, so it creates a new endpoint in here for this computer. If it was an acquisition from an already existing endpoint, it would have just added the PPC, the specific acquisition, to that existing endpoint. And indeed, that is the other way of adding an off-network acquisition, is from going to that specific endpoint, going to the task, and you can upload a PPC from here directly to that endpoint as well. If we do go and look at the one that I've just added, under tasks, I can now find that PPC import, and I can click view to see the report of that acquisition with all the details that were collected. As you can see, different from the previous reports that we've seen today, we don't see the drone analysis here yet, but in future versions, the drone analysis will be applied to off-network PPC as well, so you will see that here. Now, let's go back here. Now, before you ask, at the moment, this supports .ppc files, but in upcoming versions, we're going to add support for ePPC as well. So if you have an offline acquisition done with Tactical, for those of you who've done that, you get an ePPC file, which is an encrypted PPC file that requires the Tactical license to decrypt. Today, if you need to upload that data, you will need to first decrypt it with Tactical and then upload the PPC file. But from the next version, you'll be able to load the ePPC directly into AIR. Last thing I wanted to show on this is if I go to that endpoint, and I can do the same on endpoints that are existing in my system or acquisitions that I've done with the AIR agent, but I'm going to show it with this one actually. That's another thing we've added, is the ability to send that PPC directly to the timeline. So I can do it for, as I said, for existing ones too, but for that one, I can just send it directly to the timeline, select the timeline I want to send it to, and that's it. It's already done. So if I'm going to the timeline now, I can see I have now 4 sources in this timeline. And other than the 3 endpoints that we've seen in the previous timeline demo, we will now have data from that 3rd endpoint as well. So it's all integrated together. That was off-network acquisitions. The next thing we wanted to show is the new webhooks. So let me just go to webhooks here. And it's really easy to add webhooks integration. Just click new webhook and let's give it a name. All right, and I can select from the drop-down list here the right parser. So the new ones that we've added are for Cortex XSOAR and for Splunk Phantom. But you can see previous CM and EDR solutions that we've integrated with here as well. If I select Cortex, for example, I can now see the unique webhook link here. If I'll just click it, it will be copied to my clipboard, and I can now set up the trigger on the Cortex system with this link to trigger AIR. Now, once an alert is raised by Cortex, it will trigger AIR to start doing something, an acquisition. In this case, this is what I can select here. So I can select compromise assessment or any of the other pre-existing or bespoke profiles, acquisition profiles that I've created. I can ignore recurring alerts, because sometimes these systems can create multiple alerts for the same event. So I can ignore that for a window of time. And same as in any acquisition, I can choose the properties here and also the drone analyzers that I want to use. So say, for example, your SOAR system triggered the webhook alert, then it will send it will trigger AIR API with the name of the specific endpoint that needs to be assessed, and that will automatically start a compromise assessment on that endpoint with all the drone analyzers, and you get the neat report with all of the drone verdicts ready for you when you going to start that investigation. Okay. And last but not least, I want to show some of the new security features in here. So if you go into settings and to console, these are the new security settings that we've added. So both are switched off by default, but you can very easily switch it on, and this will move the console UI to be served over port 8443. So you can make sure that's open in your firewall, and then it is more secure for the console access. So not just anyone can access that the console on this port. The agents will still continue to communicate over port 443, just so none of the communication with the endpoints is interrupted. But it just splits the UI to a different port. And the other thing is IP restriction. So if I remove that for a second, so again, it's switched off by default, and I can add new IPs here or blocks that I want to allow into my console. If I'll test this right now, it's not going to allow me. It's not going to allow me to save it because my IP is not in this list. So if I try to log in here, basically if I would have saved it, it would have blocked me from logging in. So I can put my IP here, and then I'm able to connect, or I can put the whole block. And that will allow me to connect from any computer within my local network. That's it. I believe that is everything for our demo today. Emre, do you want to add anything to these 3 features that I've just shown now?
Maybe one minor note, Tom. For the off-network acquisitions, in the upcoming versions, we are planning to add an off-network collector. So currently, you need to use tactical with --offline switch. So that way you can create our case format, which is the PPC stands for. But in the upcoming version, we're also adding a button here. So you'll be able to directly download the offline collector in a zip file. So all you need to do is like running that shell, or bat script inside that file, and then you won't be required to provide any licenses, any switches. So it will be just one quick process. So that's also on the way.
Thank you, Emre. Steve?
Great. Thank you, guys. Okay, that's the end of the feature highlights. So thank you, Tom, for making those demonstrations. Just before we get to the questions, a little bit of selling. We will be running another event on Wednesday, the 20th of October, and we will be introducing a new way for specifically MSPs, forensic investigators, incident responders to handle cases within Binalyze AIR. So a different flavor of AIR that will become a case management tool. If that fits your profile and sounds interesting, please go over to binalyze.com/contact, and there's a link at the bottom of that page to sign up for that event. There is also a link in the chat on the right-hand side to go directly and join that event as well. And I hope we can see as many of you there as possible. So with that said, just finally, if there are questions, there's a couple that have come in. So I will ask the first one, which is kind of a roadmap question, actually. Will drone integration be expanded in other areas of AIR? Emre.
It will expand in a lot of areas of AIR. As an example, in the upcoming versions, we are planning to add Sigma, so live Sigma scan. And also, I'm sure most of the audience doesn't know about it yet. We're also adding OS query. So these will be added to Drone, both as a standalone product. So in that case, Drone will be able to use almost all the widely used query formats out there. So Yara, Sigma, and OS query. So all these will be available. And we are adding more and more features to Drone. So that's definitely on the way.
And thank you for that question from the attendee who submitted that question, because that was a great opportunity to talk about the roadmap. The second question I have is regarding integrations. The question is that there are no CTI providers in the list. Are there any plans to work with CTI providers? And if so, which ones?
Yeah, actually, we are working on another unique product that we call Binalyze Hub. And Hub will be available for the community free of charge. But in the very first version of AIR, we are planning to integrate with Hub. So whenever your CTI provider provides an IOC, AIR will be subscribing to those IOC feed. And then whenever we receive an IOC from there, we'll be automatically running a triage. So it's a work in progress. But we are definitely on track. So soon it will be also available as part of the product.
Great, sounds good. Looking forward to that. And the final question I've got from our viewers today, will integrations be able to perform other tasks apart from acquisition?
There are a lot of stuff here. Great question, by the way. I'm super excited about that. So we are planning to add a playbook support to AIR. Especially next month's best feature, Binalyze Interact. You will soon be able to run remote commands on the endpoint, of course, based on your privileges. But we are planning to integrate this with webhooks. So whenever you receive an alert from your CM, SOAR, or EDR solution, first you'll be able to run an acquisition. And now, with the latest integration Tom already demonstrated, you're already running a compromise assessment on that acquisition, and right after that you'll be able to run custom commands on the endpoints. So this is definitely on the way, and we are super excited about that feature.
Great, sounds good. Okay, I'm out of questions and we're almost out of time, so we should probably close up. Thank you everyone for spending the time with us this afternoon. I hope you found it useful.
Steve,
go ahead, Tom.
sorry, there's another question in the chat that just
okay, sorry,
appeared. So let's let Emre respond to that, and then we'll close it off.
Can you? I'm full screen. Can you read it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, Emre. So we have a question. Is there integration with Sexon CM?
This one, I mean, I'm not sure if it has webhooks, but almost all mature CMs has some triggering mechanism. And that's what Steve mentioned previously. So if you take a look at the webhooks parser dropdown, you'll see a lot of widely used CMs. But at the bottom of that list, we have generic URL parser. Maybe we can go. Yeah, great, Tom. So if you scroll to the parser, yeah, that one. So read endpoint name or IP address from URL. As long as your CM can trigger some HTTP actions, you can easily use this parser for integrating with any CM on the market. So we should check if that CM has a mechanism for trigger. But as I mentioned, almost every CM on the market provides this functionality.
And also, as Steve mentioned, we are adding about 2 new integrations every month. So if it's not yet on the list, we will probably work our way through that, and everyone's more than welcome to submit feature requests to support@binalyze.com or contact@binalyze.com, and we'll be more than happy to accommodate. Steve, back to you.
Great, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Vinny, for the question. I'll speak to you soon. Okay, I think we're pretty much done. As I say, we're almost out of time. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you can see that we continue to make good and quick progress. If anybody has seen something today that they would like to take further, please reach out to us via the website. You can book a one-to-one demo, or you can contact sales from the website. So we'd love to hear from you. Join us again on the 20th, and as Emre teased, there are some big things coming, so there'll be also future feature review webinars as well. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you very much.